Hi, everyone, and welcome to tonight's show. I just want to say a big thank you to my beautiful friend Phil Rice for joining us here from New Zealand tonight. And a big thank you to our Soul Tribe for tuning in. We love having you here and the questions that you ask. So, if you do want to ask questions tonight, because Phil is an amazing mind and a beautiful soul, and
Oh,
he has so much wisdom and knowledge that he's the sort of person you can ask like the deepest of deep questions to. So don't hold back on your questions tonight. Thank you for joining us.
well, what a pleasure. And yes, please, I will help as best as I can. Anything that I talk about that you have any questions from, please just put them in the chat there. And yeah, it's been a long time, Sol. You know, we used to catch up way back in the day, and there's been it's like anything though. You know, we used to get along so good. You have a break, and then you come back, and it's like nothing changed. And I'm so pleased to see you being so active as well on YouTube and doing lives and things. It's really fun. I kind of feel there's a real reinvigoration of people with these teachings coming forth and putting themselves, stepping forward and sharing them more. So I'm so pleased and I'm so grateful
Oh,
for being here on Maison Jupiter with you, Solreta. Thank you.
oh, that's so lovely. Thank you. And yeah, we were just chatting backstage about like we've both been going down different paths and the magic sort of like come back up for both of us and all these other little segues. And yeah, Phil and I would chat for like hours at a time
Oh
and
yeah.
go deep on different subjects. So please, yeah, don't hold back with your questions tonight. I want to read your bio though. So Phil is a dedicated Reiki teacher and practitioner with a passion for exploring spiritual experiences since 2014, with a diverse background that includes a career in corporate heavy machinery sector and 10 years as a music teacher. Phil combines technical insight with strong teachings and skills to guide others in their individual journeys. So in addition to offering meditation instruction, Phil shares insights and interviews through a popular YouTube channel and a Substack blog, making spiritual exploration accessible to a wider audience. His approach to energy healing and treatments is continuously enriched by ongoing studies and practices in energetics, internal alchemy, Hermetics, Kabbalah, Qi Kong, Taji. Hopefully, I'm saying that right, Phil.
Yeah. I set you up
Um,
here, didn't I?
Thank you. Tarot, the I Ching, and many other esoteric wisdom sources. Initially drawn to energy healing after a series of satisfying initial successes, Phil quickly discovered the potential transformative power of these practices. Throughout his journey, he has encountered numerous profound experiences, including out of body journeys, and I know we're both friends with Greg Doyle, who's been on, prophetic dreams, interaction with spiritual entities, meditative and yogic phenomena, many surprising opportunities to which have deepened his commitment to exploring the greater reality and the continued development of himself through evolving daily cultivative practices. He is dedicated to sharing his experiences and methods with the intention of assisting other genuine seekers navigate their own paths of discovery and healing. Phil is available for in-person and online consultations, instruction, and treatment from his hometown in, you have to tell me how to pronounce your hometown.
It's
Um,
Howick. Yeah. That's
Howick.
all.
You never know sometimes with the New Zealand. So you're in Auckland, New Zealand.
Yeah. I'm in
And
Auckland.
yeah, perfect. And let me bring up for those of you that are wanting to go to Phil's Substack, which we were just saying backstage is a really good idea because of different restrictions and channels that disappear overnight. So this is a much safer way to I guess stay in touch with Phil and to keep up to date. And he has a lot on here. You've been working hard, buddy, over
Oh
the
my
last
gosh.
years.
I have been learning a lot about video editing, I have to say. Vi- video video
You're doing a
editing.
good job. I'm proud of you.
Thank you, thank you. I'm still getting, production is so important, like, like getting things like lighting and audio, making things aesthetically pleasing, because the message can be off-putting if it's not easy to listen to or watch. And so, and I just wanted to touch on what you said about the Substack thing and about, YouTube is great, but it has some quirkiness about it. And if you suddenly just discover that your subscriber count goes down or your channel disappears, you've lost all that work and effort you've put into building your community and your following. And so Substack, like a platform like Substack, will allow you to collect an email list where you can stay in touch directly with people. I'd encourage people to explore alternatives to the main ones. I just wanted to put that in there because I've noticed people become far too reliant on the popular platforms, and sometimes to their detriment.
That is so true. And, you know, we've seen many, many channels disappear over the time and have been on channels that have disappeared for, you know, speaking about certain subjects. Interestingly, Kundalini is one of those subjects that
Oh,
is a
really?
little bit of a trigger. So we have to be careful on certain channels what we say.
Mm,
But yeah, tonight, like I got a download from Spirit. They gave me the topic of Hermetic sciences and transformational alchemy for us to talk about. They're like, reach out, connect with Phil. And this was without thinking, just dropped into my consciousness. So was there anything that you had come up? Oh, and I should say too, let me just read. There was like a little preface that I said. So I want us to sort of have a look into this subject of Hermetic sciences and
mm,
transformational alchemy. And I
mm,
was thinking about it, say if we're looking at like our future evolution and we've used Hermetic science and transformational alchemy to kind of get to this future version of us. So I want us to have this really broad kind of
mm,
open mind with tonight, talking to the audience as well,
mm,
in thinking about how this may have helped us onto the evolution of where we're at so far and a deeper spiritual understanding.
mm.
But yeah, what does this mean to you, these subjects that we're talking about?
Well, I have to say, you know, over the many years since I started exploring things like meditation and man, you know how this goes. There are so many rabbit holes to explore, but at some point, you kind of get to the realization that the knowledge exploration pathway just goes on and on and on. And you know, it's easy to record and reproduce things that you hear and see and that, but when you have that you read, but personal direct experience is really the solid ground that I found to be the most worthwhile to pursue. Energy healing, you know, Reiki, wherever we choose to frame it, produced objective results in another, and then I had a feedback, and that was very satisfying. And so this helped to build up the you know, faith by conviction as opposed to faith by belief, where you sort of, you don't have a necessarily a solid platform, but you're open to it. But you know, when you're having, you know, someone give you feedback of like, oh man, the thing, and then you do the zippity zap and then it's gone, or it's right, like, wow, that's, I've been taking pills for 2 weeks and nothing's changed, and now all of a sudden this has happened. Or they come in with a sore thing and they leave with a great release of an emotional release, or they're suddenly able to think clearer, or they get an insight, or they have a like a vision quest experience. I mean, these things are literally all on the table when you're on the table. You don't know, right? And so after all of the exploration, I did a lot of comparative analysis with different healing modalities, because I found all these, there's so many out there. You know, there's Richard Gordon with quantum touch, and then you've got Dr. Eric Pearl with the, you know, and then you've got Bill Bankston, and then you've got Richard Bartlett, and you've got, I was really attracted to sort of more Western teachers because they were speaking in a language that was much easier for me to understand, because coming from a very technical-ish background, it had to make sense to me. So what I found is that by lining up different systems and looking for common underlying principles and denominators, it's like, oh, that's got the same thing, but just done slightly differently. And so when I discovered, so the chap that introduced me, so I went to a meditation retreat back in, a spiritual retreat, or a conference, I guess, in 2015 in Taupo, which is sort of our biggest lake in the North Island. And there's all sorts of interesting locations down there. But I went to this magic place. I caught a bus, bones in my butt, and I'm down there. And I'm having the keynote speaker in front of about a small audience of about 50 people was Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Oh my
And
gosh. I
so,
remember you telling me that.
yeah,
I can't believe that that happened with just such a small audience. I was watching him last night.
well, he was in there early on when I was watching a lot of documentaries. And the next thing, I'm sitting in a car with him, and I'm spending probably about an hour and a half, I guess, with him and Dr. Gary Cook, who's a notable New Zealand historian who's traveled and documented many of the sacred sites and strange phenomena around New Zealand, or paranormal or spiritual phenomena. But I'm sitting there and I'm having this really interesting conversation. But I also met a chap when I was walking in the door. He was this young Austrian guy, and he was really nice, and he was he's a real buff looking dude, and well, he's probably, he's not super buff, but he's really, looks after himself. And I had a chat with him. But after the Bruce Lipton talk, Bruce compressed his 6-hour lecture down to 3, spoke really fast. At the end of it, everyone's like pretty dazed. This huge download of information, right? Because we're talking about epigenetics and everything that goes around that, right? Well, we're in the waiting room, and my friend, who she drove up from Wellington and I drove down from Auckland. This is, like I said, 10 years ago. This is a long time ago. She was having a migraine. She gets these migraines, and I was trying everything. I was comforting her and trying to play a bit of guitar and sing for her and try to help her relax, and other people. And then this young dude comes over and he's like, "Can I try something?" And she's like, "Yep, sure." And he puts his hands over her head, and within about 10 seconds, she looks up and goes, "How did you do that? It's gone. It's gone. It's gone." I'm like, "It's curious." And then we start talking about everything from the Bosnian pyramids to ancient civilizations, to conspiracy, UFO, you name it. We're talking across all things. And then he starts exposing me to things like Russian contactless fighting, AKA also can be called, or similarly known as, empty force, or Linkong Jing, lofty heights. I can't remember what the last name is, but there's all of these names for these kind of reproducible yogic phenomena, which just look ridiculous if you've got no frame of reference. Or it just looks, it's over the top. It's too much. It must be.
But it's real.
Well, so it's a pretty deep one, but it turns out that it's actually, once anything gets normalized in your awareness field, the novelty kind of, it's just part of your day, so some guy came in with a sore thing and I went zap and now it's gone, and people are like, "Oh my gosh." And I'm like, "Oh, that was Tuesday." These kinds of things, they're just kind of every other day things. There are still plenty of surprises, and I am still pleasantly surprised, but I have to say, seeing the delight in others, especially when you can confidently express and share things, it's very satisfying and rewarding. Personally, fulfilling is a good word. But so I was at this conference, and this chap, and we're talking about it, and he got me interested in energy healing above everything else that was on show. There were doctors and teachers and healers and spiritual people, and everything you could name was at this conference, and a tight little bunch of people. And the one thing that grabbed my attention was energy healing, because it was like, this is a practical application of metaphysical phenomena that you can have an objective experience with another person to help reinforce, and you can take notes and record anecdotes and these types of things, which is, conducive to sort of building up your theory and your hypothesis, these types of things. And don't get me wrong, guys, like, I'm pretty good at not getting too caught up in my head, but I need things to make sense to me. I can't just believe in things. And so these were very satisfying to my practical, logical, skeptical mind, open-minded skeptic, not a scoffer, just for the record. And anyway, it turns out that this young fella, we're birthday twins.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. That's interesting, isn't it? From a holographic quantum side of things. Before we get much further, sorry, Phil,
yes,
I just wanted to pop up and remind you guys, please give that thumbs up and share this out too, so that we can continue to grow and bring amazing conversations and content to you. And for those of you wanting to have a booking, and we have Elena's candles that are back, very, very exciting. But Sophie and I both have sessions available, so use Jupiter to get 10% off. Sorry, just thought I will pop that in very quickly. That's interesting as well. That your birthday twins. How fascinating that the two, it just sounds like everything was pre-orchestrated with that event with Bruce Lipton, with the guy from Austria. But you're so true in saying that, we need these physical things. And that, for me, as much as I work in the supernatural world and in the, the auric world and the quantum world, when I've had like massage clients that have had 20 years of pain go with one massage and it hasn't come back. And we've been able to also talk about the emotion and release hidden or trapped trauma within the, the fascia, within the muscle and things. That's me out a little. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. So do you feel that was like a pivotal, life-changing opening of a new pathway for you, or more of like a reconfirming?
Sorry, you did cut out there, but I'll take what I can from what I did pick
Yeah,
up in
sure.
regards to, experiencing unlikely outcomes from a contemporary point of view. Well, that's just a load of bollocks, isn't it? It's like, well, it's a bit hard to turn it down, bro, when you have, like, the first time I tried out energy healing, right? I got a free book off the internet, or a free Audible book or something like that. I read through it. There's some mental gymnastics in there. My friend comes over and she's like, I'm like, oh, you got a sore thing. I said, awesome. Would you be willing to try something out? Because I'm da-da-da-da. She's like, excuse me. And she was open to it. So she's, please. So, she lies on her tummy. And so I'm going, okay, right. So I put my hands over the thing and just on top there and start doing the mental gymnastics. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh my gosh, it's moving. Well, isn't that interesting? So then I'm not applying. Remember, this is energy healing. There's no manipulation involved here. So you're just basically putting your hands on or above, sort of thing. And then she says it's moving off to the left. I'm like going, okay. I just thought it might have just dissolved or something, but no, it actually moved. And we literally chased it out of her shoulder, and she felt it leave. And then she's like, gets up and she goes, oh, there's still a little bit of tightness there, but it's pretty much gone. And, I'm going, well, that's encouraging. And then the next bunch of things came up, and I was presented with opportunities to provide this treatment or this thing that I was doing, and I was getting, statistically speaking, largely positive outcomes. And so I felt very encouraged. And so I was excited and energized. And this helped to fuel other aspects of my life. And this comes around full circle, and it reinforces within me the importance of being joyful and energized and enthusiastic, even in the face of challenging scenarios, the best you can. You can't always hold it, but when you're full of life and having a good time, especially with your practice, you're going to get way better results from what I've found, because you're much more engaged with it. But as far as like the physical end of the stick, where you're able to use energy, if you will, to provide outcomes for people who maybe they're open to it, but they don't know a lot about it. That's valuable because it helps to, like I said, reinforce your evolving understanding of things, because if you're hanging out around a lot of negative people who say no all the time, you can just about get talked out of even exploring these things. And so when you're producing things, and that's why I say, look, it's one thing to have your subjective personal experiences, which is great. I mean, I love it. Like, I go on all sorts of exciting journeys and things, right? But when you can provide that to service the sand pit, or the whatever we want to call this earth experience, the earth walk, to provide others with the ability to sort of lead a richer life, I guess, or get them back out onto the field and give them an alternate point of view as well, because obviously I was, when I was unwell, I would go and see, who I was pointed towards, which is usually a fella in a white coat. And, it turns out that there's a lot of other options there. In fact, a lot of them even grow in the backyard, or you can even just do stretches and things like this, and breathing. And so it started with physical healing, and then people started having emotional releases. And then the more I did it, people started having other experiences as well. And that's when I started to realize that there was a spectrum of opportunity and potential within this. And so eventually it becomes like a shamanic type of treatment. And I mean, I've gone deep with the Reiki stuff. One of the reasons I bring up Reiki is because Reiki is a pocket-sized spiritual development system that uses composite exercises. So, for example, if I explain that with something and bring in the conversation of Hermetics, this book here, I was introduced to this about 10 years after meeting I'll bring it up there. It's called Initiation into Hermetics by Franz Baden. Okay, this book is out of print, but you can still get copies of it. But this is probably the most compact version of a meditation system that really yields like awesome results. You need to probably find some modern translators, and that's what my YouTube channel is all about. We generally talk about this process. But what it did was it allowed me to understand why the founder of the Asui system of Reiki, why he chose the exercises he did. And to be fair, most of the exercises in that system don't get practiced today. I haven't seen them. I've read a stack of books on Reiki, and only about this many of them mention actual exercises. It's more about attunements and symbols, which is a whole nother conversation, which is sort of change into sigil magic and that. But this framework that you can overlay on other systems, this Hermetic framework to help you make sense of things. Sorry, I wandered off. So,
I'm ADHD. I'm totally invested in the story. I'm just cool. Like, it's like we're on a quest, and with you being from New Zealand, it's like the Lord of the Rings. All right, we're little hobbits, and we're on the trail. So yeah, I'm segueing already. Let me pop this up on the screen to help people to have a greater understanding of what we're talking about too. So this is the 7 principles that govern, and just correct me if I'm wrong, but from like my research, I kept finding this reproduced over and over again. So this was just on gateofconsciousness.com. Essentially, it talks about mentalism being the first principle, correspondence being the second, vibration being third, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and then gender being the 7th. So just to give you guys a preface of what we're talking about, but I'm also looking at like what you're talking about with the energy healing and things, and I can't help for my mind to step into a parallel universe of where we've grown up and we've been nurtured and nourished with these foundational principles and with these Hermetic sciences. What kind of world would we be living in now? Or in our parallel like version of us, what is that parallel version able to teach us in the here and now too? Because, you know, it's there's no distance between that version of us and the version of us that exists here. But continue on. Let's keep walking on our little path and our journey.
Okay, so just like there's many schools of Reiki, there's many schools of Christianity that split off from the Reformation. Just like there's many schools of Tai Chi, and there's different schools of knowledge that generally get an umbrella term. There's Hermeticism, there's Hermetic philosophy, there's Hermetic, Hermetics, but if we just refer to those 7 principles that you mentioned, which are obviously printed in the book by the Kabbalion, which is a fairly, it's just over 100 years old, and there's a bit of mystery that surrounds that. But essentially, things need to be testable. Hermeticists are scientists, and they seek to understand through observable, cause and effect, reproducibility. Magicians were the original scientists, and now it's gone more to the sort of materialist reductionist worldview, because basically, like, when church and state get together and split up, there's all of these paradigm shifts and things that happen over time. But as far as like, you're talking about a parallel world where we embrace more of this philosophy. Was that sort of what you're pointing at? And how would that look?
I kept seeing like a parallel version of us, or if you imagine back to the time when all of this started to become popular. By the way, Phil and Tim, you two need to connect. You guys are on the same sort of path and the same, both, with similar backgrounds. I think you guys would love to chat.
Hey, Tim.
So I've just popped Tim up here. But yeah, and Tim is right. The emerald tablets tell it all too. So, and I can't pronounce Hermes Trismegistus. You'll probably be able to pronounce it better than I can, which is essentially where Hermetic studies and sciences and everything originates and comes from. But yeah, what I was sort of saying with this parallel version, imagine if we sort of stayed on a path where this was the path that we continued to go down, not this path of science or this path of allopathic medicine. Just imagine like where we would be at right now. And I'm sure there's a version of us that exists where that continuation did happen and that advancement did happen. And I kept thinking of this because of this show being the Galactic show too. I was thinking, there must be other kinds of civilizations out there that have their own wisdom or their own hermetic sciences. So I sort of wanted to have a little bit of a playground around this and talk about like potentials too. And I just feel like that'll open up to an even bigger, I guess, thought pool of which we can pull and look at it from a different point of view.
Wow. Okay. So there's
Just
a
a
lot.
small one for you, Phil.
There's a bit to unpack there, sis, but we'll have a crack. No, it's all good. It's all good. Load me up. Okay.
Oh,
Okay,
and
here we go.
sorry, I just pop up this as well. So Lorianne just asking if I had also practiced Reiki. So yes, I've done level 2 Reiki. I still go back to my original, more kind of like galactic healing that I've always worked with because it's a similar sort of thing. But Phil, you're also what level did you end up getting to with your Reiki? I just want to say you also have that service available for people.
Yeah, so as far as my my adventure into a lineage of the Asui-based Reiki system of natural healing, or what it was originally called, which was the secret method to blessings and cure for all diseases, and then it eventually became Reiki, which means spiritual energy, essentially, or ghost or god energy. I did a Asui Shiki lineage, which is a Western type lineage, which is like it's kind of like an anything goes kind of lineage where, people will bring in a lot of other things. It's a very much more of an open platform. So I am I guess you could say I'm an accredited teacher. And so I'm a Reiki teacher and practicer in the sense that, I go a little bit wider than what the probably most popular sort of like arena of Reiki will entertain. I've gone really deep. I could probably write a pretty good book on it as far as what I've discovered to be separating myth from original fact, because over time things change. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much where I got to. One thing I'll say about it, one of the benefits I got from doing a Reiki course, because I was doing energy healing before I did a Reiki course.
Yeah.
One of the benefits that I got, and this, I cannot emphasize this enough, and you'll find this, this is a law of resonance type conversation. And that is, I was the only dude in the room. Okay. Now that didn't mean I was like, oh, right. It wasn't like that. It was more like, it was a very different environment. Now, I've worked in primary schools, which is a very feminine environment. Primary schools, there's a few dudes. There's the caretaker and the odd dude, but generally it's all ladies, right? And so you go into the staff room and you're sitting down and it's tea and bickies and pleasant conversation generally. And, back in the days of working in the workshop where it's all dudes, a whole different environment. And same with secondary schools and that. But what I want to say is that at a Reiki course, ways to take advantage of it is that you're in an environment where, because people are open-minded and someone's facilitating that space, there's a good chance that you're going to have some surprising experiences. And because I was in the space, and this was unique to me, and it seems to happen in a group dynamic. Group work is awesome. There are some downsides to group work as well you have to be mindful of, because people can bring funky things in. There's a way to vet these things. You have a So that's why a lot of schools, like internal arts schools, will have a public interface, and then they'll check people out over time, just like Reiki did. Like he did, people had to demonstrate their skillfulness before they had to reach certain proficiency markers before they were allowed to progress through the system. They had to have certain number of they had to demonstrate certain levels of skillfulness and listening or awareness skills and demonstrate those before they could be taken, because there were prerequisite sort of skills before they could do the thing. Before they could lift 100 kilos, they had to learn how to lift 20 kilos sort of thing. So yeah, you know, as far as Reiki goes, you can go to a group, and so this lady's lying on a table, and here's me just going, I'm open to this stuff, but I need validation. I'm asking a lot of really air, because I'm an air element person predominantly. Like I need to know, you know,
Yeah,
Aquarius,
same.
right? And my just for shits and giggles, here's my favorite card.
Oh, mine too.
It's like it's
I
been
love
my
it.
guiding light for so many things, that card.
Yeah,
Um,
she's beautiful.
And so, lady's lying on the table, and she's our practice person, and we're doing the scanning. And in Reiki, we have this thing called Byosen, which is essentially training clairsentience awareness and feeling. And our teacher gave us a set of things to explore. And I stopped, I tapped myself on the shoulder twice. And then my teacher looks at me and says, what did you pick up on? I said, oh, about 12 or 13 years old or something like that. And the lady on the table goes, I dislocated my shoulder when I was 13, sort of thing, my left shoulder. And
Yeah,
I'm not thinking, I didn't get like, say left shoulder. It was just like I just felt like doing this and then saying, you know, the age, because we were scanning at different levels for different ages, these types of things. And I'm not sure if I would have, like, without the prompting and the sort of the encouragement and support, been confident in sharing that, to be fair. But
yeah.
because the environment was conducive to it and that was friendly and really relaxed. And like I said, I've worked in a hyper masculine environment. This was super feminine. It was like, wow, this is really good for doing practice. And so, sorry, I wander around as I do, but
Oh,
yeah,
no.
so Reiki.
I had the same experience, like when I was doing Reiki, I think it was two, but it was on the distance healing. And I've shared this on the show before. I'm not
Mm,
sure if I've shared it with you, but you know, I only had the name to go by. They didn't have a photo of the person because that's the way the system was working, that they were practicing was have a
mm,
photo. I tuned into the name, and this is going back to when I was I might have been maybe 23. And
mm,
I saw someone that didn't have legs. They were sort of only had just below the waist. And I saw them on a skateboard, but I saw them with like all these little like cigarette burn marks all over the body. And
mm,
I just saw cancer and things. And I saw like trauma and abuse and things like that. And I'm like, my mind must be making this up. This cannot be a person. And it was a young person I was seeing. And I just, the same thing, you know, in that environment, you just feel that it's safe to share. And I shared, and it ended up being 100% spot on and accurate. And my heart was, you know, breaking for this beautiful soul that had gone through so much trauma. But then I heard that they turned it around and they were doing, I think it was speaking and, you know, really lifting up people and showing
mm,
like what you can overcome. But it's amazing when we're in a supportive space like that. And that's what I
mm,
feel we have here in our gorgeous community. And I really
mm.
feel everyone's support together. So I just want to say thank you again for coming on the show and also for, you know, our beautiful soul tribe.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I just want to say thanks to everyone who's watching in the chat, participating, just listening, just sitting back, enjoying, however, whatever. It's look, when we're hanging out like this in fellowship for learning or sharing in that, you know, we really help the collective out. It's the truth. And you know, as far as those of you who may be interested in Reiki or in a Qigong practice, anything that involves energetics, um, and this will come back around to this kind of idea of this, maybe this parallel world or this ideal situation, right? Where when we walk in alignment with universal lawfulness. So we're not basically being just haphazardly banging against the walls of the corridor as we work and gathering karma and all these unhelpful things. You know, we're aware, you know, of things like cause and effect, you know, like even how the creation cycle of how a thought becomes a feeling and emotion and then becomes an action, you know,
Yeah.
and I'll definitely get into that in a sec when because I want to give you guys a little bit of a theory breakdown about the three bodies, because I think this will be very helpful to a lot of people trying to make sense of things. Uh,
Yeah.
but you know, as far as the parallel world goes, if everyone is operating in alignment with universal lawfulness, then we're not stepping out of line, so to speak, but we're still able to explore creative potential. And my personal view is that if we are indeed the creation of a creator, then part of our part of one of the options or roles we can play here is to continue that process. We can obviously do that with children, but we can also create things and send them off out to the world, or we can create things that we do not believe existed before. And so we know that creativity stimulates neural pathways, and that other activities don't. And my time as a music teacher, I didn't intend on being a music teacher. I wanted to just be a muso once I quit my corporate job and just get wasted and laid, if I'm just perfectly frank. And I'm sorry, but that was the truth. That's just me speaking my truth.
I love how real you are.
Thank you. And once I started working with kids and seeing how impressionable they are, and I was like, man, I have to lift my game. Oh, I'd like to think I was a good person back then too, but I was still I was a bit of a wild bachelor. I was out of corporate, trucks and diggers, pretty wild environment, just that by itself, believe it or not. But these things led me towards an understanding of how we can become potent agents of positive change in the world, and how we can, how there's someone who comes round and, or you go around to someone's place and it's just like, you just go, you just feel a big release or a chill. And some people just have that effect, and it's just the way they are, right? Well, it turns out that all of these things are learnable skills, if we want to frame it that way. And so when we engage in Qigong, Reiki, Hermetics, essentially what we're doing is that we discover these bodies and how they can be leveraged to improve the lives, starting with, of those immediately around us in our sphere of influence. And that affects, once they feel good, then that affects outwards. And so it becomes like an exponential ripple effect. And so learning how to develop energetic sensitivity and awareness, and then that's the qualitative relationship, when you go, there's a thing. And then you learn how to you learn how to increase the volume or the quantity. So quality, quantity, you increase the quantity, surround yourself in this stuff. Then you just walk, and then you learn how to refine it or flavor it with how you desire it. And then like peacefulness, tranquility, happiness, whatever it is, these types of things, you flavor that energy. You're walking down the main street and you're basically wiping your field on people, and it's a natural emanation. You're not pushing this on anyone. You're just being your joyful self and pushing it out, and you're saying, hey, this is who I am. Because when we're growing and developing, we're moving into an expansive state. And so this stuff naturally just sort of starts emanating outwards. But it turns out that these autonomic functions, like breathing, we can take hold of and expand upon existing sense capabilities and things like this. And this is part of the process. So in this ideal world, or this parallel thing, we're basically going, okay, where we know what it is to be in alignment with things like, we learn how to discover our true self, which is essentially the core teaching of, say, Reiki. The current model of Reiki, if I compare it to, say, a fuller framework like the Hermetics framework, as explained in Franz Barden's first book, Initiation into Hermetic, Reiki is a little lacking. It's like the telephone game. It goes around a few times and then it's almost changed. There is a development pathway in the system of Reiki, but there's big gaps. At the top, the last symbol or the last mantra, because before the symbols, there were mantras. The symbols came later, okay? And that talks about the great bright light, which we could talk about as being non-dual light, which is on this vibrational scale that we learn to explore. And, but it doesn't give all the steps to get there. And so what we need clear understanding. So we use our intellect to make sense of things. And if you think of a bridge, and on one side, you've got your intellect. Oh, yeah, okay, so I do this, then this, then this. You understand cause and effect. I'm going to sit down, watch my thoughts. I'm going to learn to concentrate. I'm going to do vacancy of mind, da-da-da-da-da. And this intellectual process gives us momentum, and then our intuition gets stimulated through this process, and then we end up on the other side of the bridge from the momentum our intellect gives us. And then we come back to the middle, and our intellect and our intuition, we have this divine marriage where they serve each other. They're working with and for each other, and then we're firing on all cylinders. And then it's like, oh, what can I do? And it's like, man, I can really get up to some highly positive mischief in the rest of my time here.
It's fun.
It
I've
is.
done the same thing, what you were saying, like, about, going out and you radiate that aura, and I've had some
Mm,
really funny things happen. So it's definitely real, and I've had people come back and confirm and say exactly, like, what I'd programmed into my field that day. Oh, and something that I was looking at this last night, because this word just kept coming up. So introception, but it's that inner sense driving your thoughts. And I think that's maybe perhaps like where you were talking about bridging from the mental aspect and sending that into more like that energy or that transformative side of things. But it's really kind of being aware of like how our bodies react to the world around us. For me, it's like very much being in the present moment because that's where we have the most charge. If we're not sort of escaping off into past or traumas
mm.
or too far into the future. I think this is where the magic happens, maybe on that little bridge that you're talking about.
So this is a great opportunity to, excuse me, to share a little bit of theory. So my approach to Hermetics is not so much studying philosophy as it is practical, sort of like, yeah, I want to touch divinity. I'm not mucking around here. I've done enough reading, man. I've read stacks of stuff. I've got gigabytes of books and stacks of books, and I'm looking at it going, man, this is great. But, how can I actualize
Yeah.
divinity within my awareness at its peak potential within my lifetime? Or how close can I get to the ultimate? What is the ultimate? I don't know. Apparently someone might say it's nirvana. Some might say it's union with the absolute, theurgy. Uh,
Mm.
so so I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a theory lesson, and then I'd love to, if we can get to it. By the way, if you want to do some audience questions at any time, you just hit me up, mate,
Oh,
and we
we've
can
got
just tend to.
one from Gary just on the screen
Yep,
now.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
How do you maintain your energy while healing others? This is a really great question. So, uh, so here's a thing, right? So you've got these energy bodies, right? So you have this ether or this void. The all the traditions talk about it. Generally, you've got things like the akasha, you've got the ether, the void. Tom Campbell talks about this, the 0 point. Basically, the mother. The God has, you could say, has two sides. There's the light, which is we would consider to be the dad, and the akasha or the womb that creates the void from which everything comes from is generally referred to as the mum. That's the dark purple energy, and the light is beyond sound, sight, sensation. It's not really a verbalizable kind of conveyable understanding. It's like you can only have it through direct experience. But
Yeah.
when it talks about when to address the question, energy, you don't want to use your own personal stores, okay? And if it comes through you, it gets flavored by you. And that's why, in Reiki, probably the most important part of the Reiki teachings are the precepts, because those are ways to clean up your astral body or your sort of your fat feeling emotional body, because essentially, that can, if you're bringing energy through you, part of you is going in and also part of them is coming back. It's a two-way sort of thing. And so there's ways to get around that. And that's where studying magic has been like, in Hermetics has just been like, all right, this is how you do it. So ultimately, you want to be able to pull the vital energy if you want to work at the vital level, which is more like if somebody comes in and they've just hurt themselves yesterday, they're probably going to get healed by vitality. That's an information field that you can basically force load and pack them with vital energy, which will stimulate the healing process to be faster. You're basically force packing them with resources to actualize the self-healing process. If they've had the issue for a while and they've started to identify with it, they've, like the little old lady who's got a sore hip or a sore leg and now she identifies with it. If you start organizing your day around an injury or a
Yeah.
problem or a way of being, that's going to start becoming part of your personality. And that's more to do with the astral or the soul level in Hermetic parlance. So we have the vital, the physical, which is our central gravity, lower dantian. So I'll stand up. And then we have the soul or the astral body or the ego and the emotional feeling body. And then we have the mental spirit or the immortal spirit body. And most of the healing happens usually at the vital and the astral level. Mental related stuff, it's more just helping people to clean up their spirit perceptions. And but when you're doing healing, it's better to be able to pull it out of the void so that they're getting fed directly and it's not passing through you. The other way to do it is that you can essentially pack yourself. You pack yourself. You don't pack yourself, but you're basically packing yourself with vital force, and so you start emanating it. And then what happens is that you've got enough for you, and then this exceeds the physical parameters of your body, and just by the virtue of being in close proximity with them, they will draw what they need to. And I can go into a lot of detail about this, but essentially, if you're going to be a healer, I highly recommend that you get into fascia development. So there's a bridge between the mental and the astral. It's called the matrix, the astral or the mental astral matrix. Then there's a bridge between the astral and the vital body or the physical body, which we would call the physical astral matrix. And then what we have is that we have the most physical part of the energy body, where energy becomes form, essentially. This is the best I can come up with, the best I've come across that I've come from teachers like people like Mark Rasmus and the guys in the Hermetics and the Tai Chi and Kabbalah stuff. It's the fascia, it's the white tissue of the body. So if you learn to move your awareness.
Sorry to interrupt. There's another lady on Instagram. I'm not sure if it's Dr. Catherine someone, but she talks about that sort of where spirit fuses in, or it's like the microcrystalline aspect of us made physical. And there's so much memory and storage and things that happen within the fascia. There's amazing, I can't remember the other guy's name, who does like incredible fascia releases, and it transforms and changes people's lives.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, so this is the final bridge to the physical, essentially. So you've got the energetic, then you've got the physical, and this facial web that wraps around and weaves through the body, which is how you absorb force in Tai Chi. So my friend, right, he's pushing up against me, right? We're standing up against me. He's about this much taller. He's got big arms. He's a big dude. He's strong. He goes to the gym regularly. He's lifting big weights. And he's got his hands up against mine, and we're pushing. I say, right, bro, push me over. And then he's pushing. All of his force is I'm just driving it, taking it. I'm loading it onto my facial web, onto my elastic band in my body, and I'm letting it ground into the floor. He can't push through me. Yeah. And then I just walk straight through him because I've nullified his force. And so this
such incredible terms, because I've watched a lot of the empty force stuff and some of Mark, I think, Rasmus's work and a few other people. And then there's a few things even on Gaia, on Becoming Supernatural, where they have the Russian teachers and the more Asian teachers come together to talk about how they're all doing it. But you just put it in such beautiful, simple, oh, I can do this type form. So thank you for translating that for us and making it more understandable.
This is where it's at. As a teacher, we have a responsibility to ensure the success and progress of our students. And so this book here, Initiation into Hermetics, which is probably look, seriously, guys, let's just get straight to the point. Get this book, read through it, find yourself a copy of this. If you can't get a print copy, it's on, you can get it on PDF as well. It's quite difficult to read. It was written back in the 50s. It's a translation from Czech into German, and there's plenty of modern translators. Go onto my YouTube channel. I'm helping to crank the Hermetics community, the Franz Baden Hermetics community, because the best explainers, the best teachers, you can scroll to the bottom of the front of my YouTube page, and I've got all these people that are friends of my channel and people I've interviewed. Look, I've honestly, I've been searching for about a decade. I found the stuff that does stuff. Yeah, if you could just scroll down to the bottom.
Yeah, sure. Just tell me when to stop.
Yeah, all the way to the bottom. There should be a where is it? Is that could you go to the home up the top left?
Oh, sure. And then go to the bottom?
Yeah, and go to the bottom. Okay, so here's the channels, right? So all of those channels there are going to help you develop yourself with a Hermetic framework. But Mark Rasmus, he's the guy that the Austrian dude that I met, my birthday twin, about 8 years after meeting him, I kind of found Mark Rasmus through that. And then I've met a bunch of Mark's students, and Mark's channel is probably the best channel on the internet.
Amazing.
For actualizing empty force type and healing and metaphysical exploration. Martin Folks is a big notable. 60 Skills is probably the premier site for compact. Mystery College is great too. Maverick Mystic, I had him on the other day, but there's a whole stack there, guys, if you want to get into this stuff.
There's lots.
Oh my gosh, there's heaps. And
Thanks,
Perseus is a friend. Perseus Arcane Academy, great website. They pretty much get everyone on there. They're a teaching platform. And but like I said, the one thing that we're bound to here on this physical plane is time. We only have so much time. Now, whether we believe in time or not, the reality is that, we can extend our lifetime. We can treat aging as a disease. We can live well, eat well, go organic. We can be out there doing the Tai Chi, Qigong, working with the vital energy, infusing it into us. I look younger than I used to. And I get this a lot.
Even a couple of years ago, I'm sitting here like watching you because it's the first time we're caught up in a while, thinking, you've reversed. Like whatever you're doing is working, keep doing it.
I got called
and you
Benjamin
and I around
Button.
similar age, I think, too, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm 46, just for everyone's reference.
I'm 44.
Right. And you look great, mate. You look fantastic. You really do. You look after yourself. And
Thank you.
And this, oh no, you're welcome. And credit given where it's due, I think being ambassadors for wellness is a great starting point for anybody going on the journey, because you need a good frame to operate from. And if you're doing energy healing, I think personally one of the reasons why our friend Greg is such a successful and prolific Reiki practicer and healer and teacher is because from a biomechanical point of view, he's a surfer and he's a tennis player. And if you look at what happens in surfing and tennis, that you're working on your balance a lot. And you're also learning how to stretch and stay in position and things. This is all working the fascia. And the fascia takes a long time to... Sorry?
You're just like connecting the dots with that for me. That also activates the vestibular, the part of your brain that's to do with balance. It recalls from the cerebellum, which is your filing cabinet too. So I'm like, that's why he's so smart. It makes sense. Yeah.
So this building up the physical energetic pathways, or what we're doing is that if we want to become potent, we need access to bigger volumes and higher throughput. There's physical biomechanical things we do to improve the conductivity of the vital energy, which we then can change into astral energy or qi. And then if you took it from a Chinese point of view, in Chinese medicine, we have Jing, we have qi, and we have Shen. And then we have Wu Ji, and then we have the light essentially. And in Japan they call it Ku. But we have these vital, astral, mental, and the balance is managed by the mental body, or the spirit occupying the mental body. And so when you are, if you want mental force, empty force is a mental body phenomena, or a mental space phenomena, where you're affecting people at a distance without touching them. So I had a lady round a few months back, probably a few more months actually. And the thing is you can't do it on everyone, because it depends. So the people I've listened to, there's around about 30% of people will feel the chi easy peasy within 5 minutes, even less. The other 30%, the middle group, will take a bit longer, but they'll get there. And then the last 25 to 30, it's going to take them a lot longer if they get there at all. Some people just, for whatever reason, I think everyone can do it. I like to think like that. I used to think that I could teach everyone to play guitar to some extent, even the people who completely doubted themselves. It's mechanical. It's cause and effect. You do this, then this, then this, then this. Some people are closer to it than others. What was I
think
this?
There's mental stacking between being able to have that as a belief or not. And I think that's what we see with hypnotherapy too, is there's certain people that, find it a lot harder to be hypnotized, but it's almost that they don't want to let go that control. So I think sometimes there's a control or a safety kind of zone, or a fixed mindset. And when you can get out of that, that's when the magic happens.
Mate, you just nailed it. So you can have subconscious patterns running in the background that inhibit your ability to access these things. So what we're doing is that we're training these three bodies, or we're schooling these three bodies in the Hermetic process. So in this book, There are 10 steps, interesting, and then there's 3 steps in each step. There's a mental training, astral, and a vital body training. Now, you know, and one of the things we do is that we want to get all our internal faculties and resources all on board with each other. Is everyone on the same team, or are you being pulled this way and that way? Are you thinking this but doing that? Are you aligned in thought, feeling, and action? This is the ultimate, guys. So if we're physically at a job that we don't like and we're thinking about being somewhere else, we're not going to be as potent and efficient in our executions of daily tasks and things. And one thing I've noticed is after exploring, you know, meditation especially, there's not a lot of mention in some communities, especially in Reiki, about the value of practicing concentration. Mindfulness of Vipassana is always mentioned, sitting there and watching your thoughts, but not focusing. And even the first symbol in Reiki is all about focus. It's a tracing pattern for your mind's eye. I've just dropped something very valuable to people here. If you look at the Chokurei, that's about finding the center point of your field of view and then learning how to focus on a point. It's Samahati training. Okay. And once you learn this basic 3, there's a lovely, was it a kookaburra in the back? A cockatoo?
Oh, a cockatoo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's cool. You know, once you get these things down, you know, doors start to open up. But sorry, you were talking about mental.
I hadn't thought of the Chokurei of being that, you know, that mind coming to a point. And it's interesting because when we put it out there energetically, it's like the mind made manifest too.
So this comes back to mentalism, or the first law of the, you know, in the Kabbalion, the law of mentalism. If we are truly going, okay, I'm going to incorporate mentalism as my worldview, as my operational platform. And you're going to be like, oh man, that means, you know, might have to change some ways I see the world. Because if you're harboring conflicting viewpoints, that's cognitive dissonance. That's all through the media and through the schooling system and everything, right? You know, cognitive dissonance is everywhere. Like you're holding contradicting views on something. It either is or it isn't. You know, you need to pick one, or is it neither? You know, and so people go, "It's this too hard. I just forget about it." You know, but if you've got internal things working against you, you know, we need to get these sorted out. So the process involves getting your internal faculties working with and for each other for your intended goals. So I watched a bit of one of the, you know, when I was watching your manifestation video the other day, where I chimed in, said hi, and then we had a chat.
Oh, yeah.
And here we are, you know. So in the Hermetic process, the chain of manifestation is we have a thought, we have an energetic feeling that associated with that thought, and then we have an action that we take. But we have, you know, a clear visual. We have, we're able to activate our spirit senses, and that's another important part of the conversation. Man, time flies when you're having fun.
This is like, I've got a billion more questions for you.
Okay. I'll tell you what. I'll pull back a bit. You guys,
please continue with the manifestation side of things. I just wrote down this morning, there's a show I'm doing coming up, and it's going to be on creating mind movies for manifestation. And it's essentially what you were saying, like, you know, having that thought, bringing it into the feeling. Because that, for me, I was just looking over old mind movies I had, and I'm like, oh my gosh, going to Dr. Joe Dispenza's retreat in, you know, November that I'm going to was a mind movie. And I was living it and watching it and feeling it all those months ago, and it happened, and I forgot I even made that mind movie. So please share your tips on manifestation, because our community, we love this stuff.
Okay, so what you don't want to be working against your own efforts, for starters. Okay, so you need to go, all right, and this is the thing, like you know, training the subconscious to work for you. So so apart from these beads obviously making me so super spiritual, because, you know, only, you know, if you wear beads it makes you spiritual. I love taking the mickey out of that one, because some people are like, oh, you know, people who wear malas, they're just trying to be spiritual. It's like, man, people, you know what? I wear these because they bite around my neck and remind me of the mantra that I'm working on, right? But they also are
talking. Make some too. It's incredibly powerful if you make your own. You infuse that energy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, make your own tools, guys. Number one, make your own tools. There's a specialness that you can't get when you buy from someone else. But it doesn't mean, but these here, You know, you do 108 repetitions of a mantra. Beautiful. People are like hitting me up, bro. What's that necklace about? I'm like going, oh, it's for reaffirming a particular way of being. I'm currently like this. I want to be like this, and so I use these to reaffirm it. I do it before bed and when I get up in the morning and then throughout the day. Helps me get closer. I've used it for mental wandering / astral projection. I've used it for changing my mindset because we're programmable, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to train our subconscious to work for us, not against us, because it's got some issues and it needs to be worked through. And part of the Hermetic initiation into Hermetic's process is mapping out your black and white soul mirrors, essentially. Conversation for another time. But as far as manifestation,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We'll have to do another one. But as far as manifestation goes, guys, and I found this in some of the healing techniques as well, is that one of the trainings that we do in Hermetics is that we learn to activate the senses of the spirit. And that is when you close your eyes and you see something and you feel it. And you basically, it's your, you know how you've got 5 senses: touch, smell, sight, hear, and it's like mentioning the 7 dwarfs. You know, your 5 basic senses plus the mind. But what you're doing is that your mental body has a set of these senses, but they haven't woken up yet because you haven't used them, because you haven't been taught to use them. And so when you do visualization or imagination practice, and we're not imagination, visualization, these words can be a bit loaded, but essentially, if you can on me, close your eyes for a moment. Let's do this together, actually, if you like. Close your eyes.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. You're on a beach. You can smell the salt in the air. You can smell the surf. You can smell the seaweed. Oh, it's a bit rank, actually. All right. Okay. Less seaweed. And you can feel. So you can see the beach. You can see the blue water. You can see the sands and the tree line. So you can see. That's one. You can smell the salt air and the seaweed. Okay. You can taste it on your tongue, on the tip of your tongue. You can feel it between your toes. You can feel the sand, and then you move into the water and you feel the coolness of the water on your toes. And then you can hear the surf as it breaks on the beach. And so what you do is that you can get good at these individually, and then you learn to stack them. And then you start really get on board with this. And so the Hermetics process versus Reiki gives you like, you know how you go to the gym and you've got like machines and they do muscle groups?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, that's Reiki. Reiki is a pocket-sized version for people. It's a spiritual system for people in a hurry, basically, if you know what you're doing with it. Okay, Hermetics, that's for the uber nerds that have got, you know, a couple of hours, maybe 3 to 4 hours a day, who like to get up at 4 o'clock and go through the full ritual. There's way you can stretch it out. There's ways of doing it, but the Hermetics process is getting those little weights and working on individual isolated muscles. And so you work on your ability to feel the sand separately, then you work on smell, then you work on this, and you work on them, and then you try to bring them together, 2 together, 2 together, 3 together, and then you learn how to stack that. And when you do that, then all of a sudden, you know, you're like going, wow, I've got a very clear picture. I can touch, smell, taste, hear, feel it, all of it. And then what happens is that conviction of what you want, right? There's that then bleeds down into the astral body because it goes thought, feeling, action. Then you get the feeling behind it, the energetic, like, oh, I really want this. I'm getting excited about it now. And your astral body starts firing up and you're like, wow, okay. And that energizes you to basically go and take the action, because you still have to take action. Some stuff is going to show up at the front door and it's going to fall out of the sky. You can do this through prayer as well. And, you know, everyone's going to have a different view on what prayer is. You don't have to be praying to anyone. You can simply be in a mode of prayer. But as far as what I was just mentioning about the manifestation chain goes, when you get these 3 things lining up, that's when the universe gets behind you and things start getting reorganized and things start finding you. You know, why is it that your ad was picked out of amongst 10? Because, you know, there's a collective unconscious that you start dipping into and having an influence in, and people will go, I don't know why, but this guy, yeah, let's give this fella a go. All right, you know, sort of thing. And so it will steer people's choices. And this may sound like you're manipulating people, but it's like, I'm just like putting myself out there.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to manipulate anyone specifically. I'm just saying I'm doing this thing. I want to put my thing out there. And I recognize from all these ancient teachings that they all talk about the same thing. They just use different language and different metaphors. And then all of a sudden things start showing up. And then there's a reason why that, because when you start walking and thinking and working in alignment with the universal law principles, there's self-organization that happens in the world and things start just naturally happening. And I've got friends who are master manifestors to the point where it's like they actually want it to stop sometimes because it's just too potent. But yeah, it's fun. Sorry.
Just to interrupt for a second. Do you find, because I noticed like when you really hold that energy in the present, by the way, I heard seagulls, I saw the white, like the water, how it reflects like the sunlight, and you get that kind of effect on you. That was such a beautiful, even though it's such a short little experience, I would love to have you back on to be able to talk about those things in maybe part 2 and 3. Because I know the audience loved it. So Lorianne, she's like, I'm still on the beach. But yeah, do you find your friends that are master manifestors, are they holding their consciousness more in the present moment? What is it for them that leads them to be master manifestors, do you feel?
Well, I can only sort of speculate upon personal observation, because these people aren't necessarily meditators. So they haven't learned to concentrate via a meditative process. However, some of them are musicians. Some of them are in fields of academia or in some kind of like hard skill, like architecture or something like this, where they're able to focus. It's really about focus, guys, because when you're trying to focus on something specifically and build something in your mind, if you get distracted, you're kind of spreading yourself out, and you've got all your awareness tendrils out there poking around, being interested. It's like a kitten with like balls of string everywhere, like, oh, look at this, so by learning to concentrate, not only can you focus on the object of your desire, but you can get deeper granularity and work through finer details. I tell you this, and I'll just bust this out. God loves specificity. Drop that down. I tell you what, if he did a half-assed job of something, it wouldn't survive. Like you think about the complexity involved in creating life and just everything. There's so much thought gone into it. So the more you can, seriously, here's another example. This is a great metaphor I came up with. So check this out. There's a thing that you want. It's not fully formed, but it's off in the distance. It's like an amorphous blob that's like, it's that thing, but it's your general north compass, right? And you can see, you want a direct line. You want the critical path towards that thing, but life takes you around corners, and it takes you down valleys and up onto hills. And each one of those things gives you a slightly different vantage point and perspective. And it's like, oh, from this angle, actually, I want it to look more like this. And so as you journey towards this thing, it starts to form more of a correct and cohesive shape. And sometimes it doesn't look the same when you get to it or get closer to it. As you get closer to it, it can change. This is just life, right? And so, yeah, once again, I've lost my train of thought. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, interesting. Oh, and we were talking about like with your friends, like your observation. So some of them were in academia, some were musicians, you were saying. And I find that interesting because a lot of ET UFO contactees or people that have mystical like experiences, and even I think I've talked about it on another show, rock stars that have UFO things like Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison. So there is some kind of dance with the divine, I think, when you have that music that runs through you. I think you are part of, or still in contact with, perhaps, not just the creator, but with higher self. Maybe you guys have more streaming capacity or something.
Well, I have to say, like I said, the great benefit, like being a music teacher actually burnt me out as a musician. And so it was sad. It broke my heart that I didn't want to play anymore. But I walked away as a teacher. Like I became a teacher and a responsible teacher in that sense. And, but it opened up things. But the thing is it got me off my desire to be a rock star, which was actually unhelpful because look at me. I couldn't help it. It was just part of the allure of it, and I was reasonably good, like I like playing rock and blues. Yeah, thank you. I put a lot of time into it, but as far as being I think being a creative, especially when you're putting ideas in your head and you're playing around with them, Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison. Tesla called Edison a tinkerer. Edison had his ideas already fully formed in his head, and he would just produce them on the table. Right? This is how it's. I've discovered this conversation. Whereas Edison had to put some stuff on a table and tinker around with it in the physical. Tesla just pull it straight from wherever onto the table, and there it was. And so if you're doing some kind of creative, like a theater of mind, for example, if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons tabletop gaming with your friends and you don't have all the props on the table and everyone's having to use their minds, that's actually really good for exploring your imaginal capacity, because the more you can visualize, like this is part of the Hermetic training early on, is that you want to be able to develop the mind's eye interface with what's going on behind the veil, so that when information handshakes happen, when like there's information in the spiritual world trying to come through into your subconscious, whatever you want to call it, the deeper aspect, you've got a mechanism where that can happen. You don't have to really squint or like focus for a couple of hours. The more you can hold. And guided meditations will generally take you through a stream of events and imagery. Okay. But in this process, like I said, we're doing isolated muscle workouts. And one of those is that you find a really familiar object that you know very well. Maybe it's a person that you have an emotional connection to, an item, something simple. You look at it, spend a couple of minutes looking at it, and then you hold it in your mind and you get really good at that. And then it becomes real in your mind. And then you can do it with your eyes open. You can have an object hanging in the air. And that creates that interface that helps with your mental wandering, your clairvoyance, all of these types of things. And so, as far as manifesting goes, all of these skills and tools, because the magician is essentially the path of the magician is becoming a manifester, becoming a God man, or the divine made real on earth, walking on earth. It's sort of like, what you might call a Jesus type figure, where I'm always a little careful when I tread on that one, but essentially, like you're able to, I think God wants friends personally, and he wants everyone to lift themselves up. And here's the tools, and it ain't easy or pretty, but there are ways of getting into the workshop and being a fellow creator, or sitting under the wing of the boss and going, okay, I've got some good ideas, I want to help things out. Okay, here's a pathway towards doing that. But you've got to be able to sort of see what you want and feel it and be able to do it. If you've got limitations or restrictions, those can be valuable as well, because it helps to cut out, because you can be a kid in a candy store with all this stuff and not get anywhere, but just be going shiny, 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 shiny. At some point, you got to go, okay, man, I've been wandering around for like the last decade, and I've only found this stuff in the last few years. And I have to say, I'm satisfied. I got my path sorted out. I can pull from a few other places. I can see how Tai Chi, Kabbalah, Hermetics, Qigong, Reiki, all of these things, I can replace that and just go, you know what? I'm an energetic internal practicer, and I'm working on all my faculties, and maybe I'll work more on this one than that one. I understand how imbalances can be formed. But I do go on.
Oh, I love that. And you and I have got so many paths that have crossed, like with me studying Kabbalah and things as well. I just have like a bucket load of questions, which we definitely will come back and do part 2. And I think there's a beautiful symphony. I wouldn't even say an overlap. I would say you really bring a beautiful masculine energy, and I've got sort of a feminine energy. So I see like where we could maybe do even a show on manifestation or things like that in future. But yeah, clairvoyance, like being clairvoyant for me, what you were saying about like having that image and then opening your eyes and it's still there. That's the way, like when I'm reading for clients, I might be talking to them, but I'm seeing like spirit gives me images. I'm seeing like all these things come up. And it really is, if you can develop that muscle that you're talking about, that is one of those solid things. But I would love to chat more about how we can apply that with manifestation. Let me just bring up your YouTube and things again for people to jump on to that. Oh, and I'll just bring up Maison Jupiter. So please hit that thumbs up. Share this out to people that will find this. We are a little bit of a hidden corner of the internet, and we are suppressed, as we've seen view counts and things like that, and comments be deleted off my channel, your channel, Maison Jupiter's channel. So please share this to people individually that you think that would really help, or if they're on this quest like we all are, and you think that it resonates with them. And please use the discount code Jupiter to book a session. Jupiter in all caps to get you 10% off. And let me just see who we have. Phil's channel. So please jump on over and subscribe to Phil as well, so you can continue to further go down this beautiful rabbit hole into a whole world of hermetics and alchemy and magic. And also, probably the more secure way would be to get onto your Substack, and to make sure that you don't lose touch if other platforms and things go down. Is there anything that I've got other things that we didn't even talk about, but we'll save that for another show, because I've really thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much, Phil, for coming on.
Yeah, I just want to impress upon, the audience here a couple of things. I want to say, guys, if you've got something that you feel like is really important, or that you've got a skill set, even if it's not metaphysical related, become a teacher. Get yourself on YouTube or on one of these platforms. You'll need to be on a couple of platforms. Like YouTube is a surveillance platform. It's not a free speech platform. Substack is more so. There's a lot of great options on Substack. They only take 10% of the cut if you're trying to make cash.
It just glitched out. Did that happen for you guys too? As soon as you said the word.
Yeah. Sorry, but this is a reality. The author of the book that I mentioned was Franz Barden, Franz. I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you, Phil.
Franz Barden. There we go.
But yeah, so accurate. And I think that little glitch out also showed us.
Yep, Franz Barden, guys. You want to get that book,
Thanks,
okay? You'll need a modern translator if you struggle with pithy stuff, because it is quite pithy and dense and that. But it's, man, I tell you what, you won't find another book like this, I tell you. And maybe you will, but I haven't, and I know a lot of people have looked and haven't. So anyway, back to the thing. I would encourage you guys, one thing that we can really do to help the general cause of waking up consciousness is to encourage people to explore other platforms, because pedestrian platforms like Facebook and YouTube, which are very functional, and I'm grateful for them, they also are, they also like playing nanny and choosing what you see and what you don't see and stuff like that. But we also, like I said, if you lose your channel, you lose all your contents and followers. But if you've got an email list like on Substack, which you can take with you afterwards or whatever you want, then you can help people go, because some people won't get off popular platforms because they're safe in that, right? But if we're trying to raise consciousness, the information needs to be available. Google is Google. It's useful, but it's useful for about this much. But yeah, as far as like practices and getting out there goes, I would encourage people to go and spend as much time in nature as possible and just breathe. Don't if you haven't come across it already, there's a really valuable skill that we learn in Hermetics. It's called, and it's in other traditions too, it's called pore breathing or skin breathing. So if you've ever seen people in body painting, how they have a square patch left on their back because they need to breathe, like the movie Goldfinger with James Bond in it. There's a lady dead on the bed. She's completely covered in gold paint. The skin breathes. It has pores. We have pulmonary breathing, but we also have pore breathing. You want to go out. My suggestion is, if you are open to trying this out, is go out into nature and practice breathing through the pores, all the pores of like global breathing, if you will, through your feet. You connect your hands and your feet. There's lots of exercises like this. This will help to recalibrate yourself with the beautiful tuning fork of natural vital force from the emanation of trees and nature, which will help to go, all right, little human, go find a big old tree and just breathe under that. All right, little human, I can see you're all messed up from all of that other crazy artificial synthetic crap going on that you hang out with. Let me basically wash and recalibrate you. And you can exchange energy with the tree. They are your friends. Big trees are your friends. They have a huge torus field that you can capitalize on. There's tree qigong exercises you can find all over YouTube. And I want to say those are some hot things to explore. Pore breathing. just sitting there. You don't have to move or do anything. You can sit under a tree and just pour, breathe, and within probably 5 or 10 minutes, you will notice a significant difference. So.
I know, like you and I have both done like the raw vegan diet at different times throughout our life as well. That just came on spontaneously for me. When I'm doing that sort of diet, I literally feel oxygen coming in through all of my pores. I can breathe better. And I know there's a couple of other people in the chat that have also practiced that. That could also be something else to talk about on another show. But thank you so much again for joining us. It's been wonderful, Phil. And thank you to our Soul Tribe too.
Thank you to everyone in the chat. You guys are awesome. Next time I come on, I'll and you guys can ask me questions, and Sol can have a timer there because I will just talk about stuff. But I'm grateful to everyone for tuning in and signing in, and those of you that guys have gone over to my Substack or my YouTube and subscribe and stuff like that. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much. And you've got access to comment and ask questions. I do regular live streams as well, and so you can just jump in and do a hangout with me and ask questions about this development process, whether it's Reiki or Hermetics. And yeah, I'm local, and I do online consultations and things too. So. My website got hacked last week along with my email. So that image that I gave you with my email address, I think it's all going to be in the YouTube description below as well, isn't it?
I can add it in after the show, your email and that. If people do get up, I put also, here's your Substack. Let me just pop this up. So if you just type in philwrightsubstack.com, is that the best way? Sorry, it's just with the link then I copied and pasted. But you'll have like your email and that. And if people, they can search you on Facebook as well, because you are over on there. There's a few different ways to come into contact with you.
I've got a Telegram as well, Phil Rice Internal Arts, and I've got an X and an Instagram. And oh my God, Telegram's another good one, guys, just for the moment. I put all my memes on there. I lure people off Facebook onto my Telegram with memes because memes are awesome. And sometimes we need to laugh. But I am so grateful, Solreta. You're such a lovely person, and I'm so pleasantly grateful and all those types of things for being on here. I wish everyone here the best, beautiful, most amazing day. Stay well, everyone, and guard your harmony.
Wise words. Thanks, Phil. Thank you, everyone. Bye.